Today, you'll hear from a few county executives offering their particular thoughts in their particular communities and why the need for federal funding is so crucial. Let's go first to the president of the New York State County Executives, the president of the National County Executives Association, the Honorable Dan McCoy, the Albany County Executive.
Steve, thanks for hosting this, and to my fellow county executives, we're all in this together, and as New Yorkers, we're all in it together. And it's been a difficult 19 weeks for all of us to get through this. Not only are we dealing with a health crisis, we're dealing with economy crisis on top of it. And how do you do this safely by reopening to go forward? But some of the staggering things for us here in the Capital District, our unemployment rate's at 15.9. Just a year ago, it was at 3.8. So it shows you what direction we're in. Our second quarter sales tax revenue was down roughly about $15.5 million. So we're looking at that alone going forward with the sales tax revenue going down, hotel occupancy rates not being there, everything else that we collected money. We could be looking at a shortfall anywhere from $40 to $60 million by the end of this year. And then that's not including our partner with Governor Cuomo in the state of New York, because they have to balance their budget going forward, and any any unfunded mandates that may come down to us, or programs now that we're used to that are going to be cut by 20%. So that's really going to have effect on all of us going forward. So I have to say this, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, conservative, working families, we're in this together, and we're going to get through this together in a partnership, working together, and helping out all New Yorkers in every county across the state of New York. And I say to the Senate, please, work with Congress, come up with a package, because from what I'm hearing, the stimulus package 5 does not include any aid other than going to the state, and then the state has to delegate it from there, which really leaves us, who are the boots on the ground. We're delivering the services. Our nursing homes are on the forefront. Our health departments are on the forefront. The amount of money we put into PPE and getting the messaging out there, keeping our essential services going. I could go on and on with what every county's done across this great state of New York. We need to bail out. We need to have this offset. And it's just not the counties. Our towns, cities, and villages, respectfully, in every county across the state are in the same situation. I'm watching mayors here locally starting to lay people off. People furloughed people already earlier. And that's just going to add more to our bills, because we all run the DSS services. We have all the different services that we have to provide, which means more people are going to need more assistance than ever before that we've seen in 08, 09. But I will say this to everyone. I encourage everyone. This is a partnership. We need to stay in a partnership. We don't need to point fingers. We need to help the American people go forward. And the way we're going to do this is by rolling up our sleeves, putting party politics aside. I don't care. Put it aside and do what's right for the people, not just of New York, but this whole great country that we live in. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, County Executive McCoy, and thank you for all the testing and contact tracing. I know in particular, Dan, you've had a situation recently with a particular party that you've worked hard to educate the public and warning teenagers and people in their 20s how important it is to wear masks, keep socially distant, and keep doing the responsible thing. That we're certainly not through this yet. I'm an Albany County resident, Dan, and I appreciate all that you do for all of us in Albany County. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Let's go to the Hudson Valley now, working very hard and diligently every day. Got a large couple of colleges in Dutchess County, Vassar, Marist College, other colleges in Dutchess County. Mr. Molinaro, the county executive, what's on your mind these days as the Congress comes into session? The President of the United States talking a few minutes ago that he struck a deal with Mitch McConnell, and it does not include state and local aid. How does that strike you?
So first, thanks, Steve, and the staff at NYSAC. You obviously have been doing great work. And to my colleagues, I know all of you have been working tirelessly, as we all have been these last few months. Let me, I'll slyly break from Dan McCoy's call for bipartisanship and be blatantly partisan. My party, the Republican leadership in the United States Senate and the president have to summon the political courage to provide direct, unrestricted aid to state and local governments. We are at perhaps the most critical point in this recovery and this response, with counties and local governments all across America now engaged in the very initial phases of responding. That response that all of us lived through, establishing testing sites, propping up care facilities, working with hospitals. 1,900 public health departments are on the front lines, administered by county governments all across America. And in some states, they're just seeing this for the first time. In our state, of course, we've lived through not only the initial preparation and the initial response, we're now living through the recovery, if you will. And how we recover and the steps we take moving forward are exceptionally critical, not only to individual health, but public health and our economic health. And we've seen it. We don't want to go backwards. And what the United States Senate at the moment, led by Senator McConnell, and yes, they share my political party, is doing is politically craven. I mean, it is the worst of what I think politics can be in the midst of an emergency. Never before has the United States government left those of us on the front lines without the aid and support that we need in an emergency. Now, I believe they won't leave us here in this case either. So if this is a negotiating strategy, that's fine. But in this moment, we need to come together. We need to summon the courage, and we need to provide the direct assistance to, in particular, state and local governments, because we're the ones responding. When the president talks about, even now, how patriotic it is to wear a mask, we're the ones distributing those masks. When the governor says prop up a test site and make sure we have those infrastructure, it's county governments that are working with healthcare providers. And in some cases, it's county governments, 1,000 of them across this country, that are administering the very hospitals where they're caring for people. So in my county, we're facing as much as a $6 million loss in direct revenue. We've got millions of dollars of assistance that we have to provide towns, villages, and cities that's in jeopardy. We're obviously having to grapple with the loss of state aid. We're that front line. We have been all along. We are in every emergency, that front line. We cannot be left here alone. As we move forward and Congress debates in these next couple of days, aid to small businesses, extension of unemployment, who do they think are the ones making the connections between families seeking unemployment aid and the check that they need to get through that unemployment? It's us. Who do they think is providing counsel to small businesses to access PPP and additional economic aid? It's our economic development teams. And who do they think are the ones that are going to be partnering with small businesses to restart the economy? It's those of us at the local level. So as they pontificate and they strategize and they negotiate, we're the ones here on the front line. And by the way, in a way that in an emergency unlike any other, and in a way like any other, county governments in a public health crisis are that tip of the spear. I just want to close by saying a lot of people have lost a lot. And businesses may never open again. Employees may never return to a job again. Don't compound that problem. Don't force us into the position of eliminating core services. You want to put dollars on the street to build highways and roads and bridges? Who do you think is going to do that if we don't have the public works departments because we don't have the aid to support them? You want to invest and get the dollars on the streets to provide for economic recovery? Who's going to partner to make sure that happens in the public works sphere? Us, unless we don't have those resources and we end up laying off hundreds of individuals. A lot of families have lost too much. A lot of businesses have lost too much. Don't let their loss be in vain. I lost my father and have experienced the worst of this disease. Don't let countless families across this country, don't let them down. We need the help. They need the aid. We need the assistance to continue to do the important work that they expect of us. We want to do it. We will do it irrespective of party, but we need that unrestricted assistance to get the job done.
Thank you, County Executive Molinaro, for your passion in this to save your community, to save your county, to save the state of New York. Your commitment throughout this pandemic. In March, I've talked to you almost every day during this pandemic. Thank you very much. Let's stay in the Hudson Valley. Go to Patrick Ryan, the Ulster County Executive, early on writing letters, writing op-eds, pleading with the New York congressional delegation to do something. Talking with Senator Schumer, talking with Senator Gillibrand early on, outlining why this was very important to his community. It looks like, from the intelligence that we have, that the president has struck a deal with the Senate Republicans on a $1 trillion deal. The news we have is it does not include state or local direct assistance, that it doesn't provide any new additional money. Rather, the Senate Republicans and the president talking about liability reform. Looks like they're going to continue unemployment. Very important, of course. We've got 1.4 fewer jobs in the state of New York in 2020 than this time in 2019. That's a lot of jobs lost. Going to continue that important payroll protection plan, but talk about why getting resources to the state of New York, and in particular to the county of Ulster, is important. Why do you need those resources?
Thanks, Steve, and thanks to everyone for making time, and good to see my colleagues, of course. At the high level, I want to echo many of the themes from County Executive McCoy and Molinaro have already hit on. I think it is incumbent on us as leaders and as public servants to not allow this to become a partisan issue or a political issue. And the key takeaway to me, and both Dan and Mark hit on this, but I think it's very important to reinforce. Counties have been and will be going forward, not just in New York, but across the country, the front line where the rubber meets the road in a public health crisis and emergency. Just a few examples of that. In Ulster County, we've stood up now 5+ testing sites completely built on our own at our expense with our healthcare partners. We've set up an army of contact tracers at our expense. We've added, nearly tripled our public health nurse capacity to meet the need. We built a surge field hospital. We've run an emergency operations center now for months on end. And we were even, I myself was negotiating and purchased PPE for our county directly from China. So counties have stepped up, local governments have stepped up, as we should. But what is very disappointing and now reaching a level of existential risk and concern is that we've stepped up, but yet we have not been supported in any direct way to get the financial relief that's required to keep us going and to keep us delivering those services. So the original CARES Act did provide $150 billion in state and local aid, but what many people don't realize, and I highlighted back in April, is that in New York State, only 9 out of 62 counties received any of that money. Every county that's had less than 500,000 residents, which is 53 of them in our state, received no direct support at that time. The House passed the HEROES Act, which would give up to almost $1 trillion in state and local funding, and over $60 billion to New York State, including $15+ billion directly to county and local governments. I am strongly urging and calling on the Senate to follow that framework. The work has been done. That plan includes many other things, but specifically the direct support is absolutely critical. And I'll tell you why. Here are the consequences on the ground from all of us that have seen this, that have been in this fight, and see where it's going, by the way, because we're not through it yet, unfortunately, and definitely not in many parts of the country. 3 main consequences of this. If we don't get this aid immediately, we will not be able to keep our frontline workers working on the front lines. Firefighters, nurses, transit workers and bus drivers, folks maintaining our roads and building the infrastructure we need to get out of this, all of those key services will be at risk. Preserving vital services in addition to them, we have seen in Ulster County our opioid overdoses double already from last year due to the pressure and the crisis. We've had our suicide rates skyrocket significantly, and at that same time, because of the financial pressure, we've already been told by the state that we will have less funding to provide those critical services at the moment of greatest need. those are the kind of existential needs and services that are at risk if we don't receive this support. And then finally, of course, for all of the nearly 20 million residents of the state, this would also potentially result in increases in property taxes at a time when we know that would be an unbearable burden on individuals and businesses and our economy. So those are the real world consequences that I know all of us are feeling. And I'll just say this in closing, in response to what I've seen floated from Senator McConnell and what it sounds like maybe has been tentatively agreed upon, which is extremely disappointing if that's the case. Not including state and local funding direct, including to counties and local governments directly, it's not only irresponsible, it shows that those leaders in Washington are completely clueless. Anyone who understands what's happening on the ground knows that this relief is needed. And so I agree that this needs to be bipartisan and not political, but we have to hold Mitch McConnell directly and his colleagues accountable on a personal level that this is completely irresponsible and would be devastating. I believe it essentially constitutes malpractice. So I will end on that note. I hope that we can get it fixed, and I'm encouraged that here on this call, we're all in agreement, and I imagine around the country our colleagues are in the same boat.
Thank you, County Executive Ryan. New York, microcosm of the United States, Republicans and Democrats represented on this call, very bipartisan state at the county level, all across this state. Let's go to Anthony Picente in the Mohawk Valley, the county executive of Oneida County. When Florida, Anthony, is overwhelmed by a hurricane, it seems like the United States rallies to their recovery effort, and it seems like we do that every year, year in and year out. That's what we do as a nation. We're there for each other. We are living in the middle of another natural disaster, the President of the United States declaring an emergency declaration, a public health crisis, in all 50 states. New York State seems to be the epicenter of the economic injury here. It seems to be the early epicenter of the pandemic and the public health crisis. Why won't the United States step up and support the state of New York?
Great question, Steve, and thank you and your leadership for allowing us this opportunity today, and to my colleagues around the state, and especially the president of our association, Dan McCoy, to my good friend Mark Molinaro and Pat Ryan. Thank you for joining us today. The nice thing about going last is a lot has already been said, but I want to echo and really reinforce a little bit and maybe take a little different turn on some of this. Why won't they help New York? That's always a major question. You know, we go through this, and I know we Steve, you and I talk about this, and Mark and others. We go through this in storms. I mean, but sometimes they look at, I think they look at New York. Well, they get storms all the time, they can handle it. Well, they get these crises all the time, they can handle it. And we have been on the front lines of this pandemic. And now we're on the front lines of the second part of the pandemic. And what I said yesterday in one of my briefings is we have an economic pandemic here. And now our shift has been, you know, in terms of county governments taking control of the situation. You heard from my three colleagues that have done an outstanding job in their respective counties in curbing this, as everyone has done in working with throughout this crisis and dealing with this pandemic. You know, we're on the front lines and have been on the front lines, declaring that state of emergency and closing schools, senior centers, and enforcing masks long before any of our colleagues in state government had, and throughout this country, because we knew what was coming. We've been through hard times before, and we've been through economic situations before. The difference with this one is that we have this health crisis that requires that added demand. And now it's turned into, and because of that, the economic crisis with businesses closed, with things that have been shut down, and even with reopening, the economic indicators are in a bad light. Marcus talked about how he's down 6 million. I think we're down about the same thing in sales tax right now and other revenues, and expending millions of dollars out the door. The difference in this economic crisis is it has a health crisis in front of it. And that's what, you know, we want those leaders in Washington to understand. And I share, again, we talked, this is a bipartisan call because we work together as county executives and leaders across the state. But as Marcus said, it's my party as well. And I've called out Senator McConnell before when he said about bailouts and the like. We've been on the front lines, county governments have across the country. And one of the things, and Steve, you and I were on a call some time ago with our leaders from across the country and with Dan McCoy. And I said, who has a public health department? County governments, who's in the lead of this pandemic? And the fact that the federal representatives, people like Senator McConnell and even our president and others and throughout the halls of Congress have not stood up and said, and I know some have, but have not stood up collectively and said, it is county governments, it's our local governments that need the assistance. We're going through package number 5 without any relief in sight of what we need to do and what we need in order to keep this ship afloat. And so it really becomes, frustrating hearing this news today that they have a deal that does not include local governments in this is very disheartening at a time when we're expending, as I said, more money on PPE, more money on services. We've been working, Steve, and county governments are a 7-day operation, 365. But it seems like those 7 days now become 14 and 7. And since March 13th, we've been doing that 7 days a week. Our health department workers, our emergency services, all of our people that we've cross-trained and put into, whether it's contact tracing, whether it's on the front lines and working on test sites, all of these things are being done. The ripple effect that this has caused, throughout other levels of government, because the state government withholds from us, we have to withhold from others in order to get our work done and get the services out the door. I've been around a little longer than some of my colleagues here, as Marcus likes to point out to me. But I remember the last economic downturn, but the difference was there wasn't that health crisis in front of it. And that's what everybody's got to realize here. We've got 2 aspects we're running, and now we're running parallel. The health crisis and the economic crisis is catching up. And for our leaders in Washington not to see this and understand it on the local level as to who's making the difference, who's doing what needs to be done. We need that assistance, and we need it now more than ever, because this is not going to end. It's not going to end with just this, with one stimulus package. I think that's another important note. It's not just going to end because they give us something today. We have got a long road to hoe throughout this crisis. Obviously, the healthcare piece is something that's going to go on until a vaccine or other means are determined to curb this. But the ripple effect of what this has, and I always say, when the economy gets bad, that's when when business gets bad, that's when our business picks up, and in county government, and that's what we've been doing. So I appreciate my colleagues, weighing in on this. The message has to be clearer and really needs to be delivered home. And, through our governor, through our leadership in Washington, right up to the president, local governments, county governments need the assistance because county governments are fighting this pandemic.
Thank you, Anthony. Also, you have a very large casino gaming resort, the Turning Stone in Oneida County. Of course, the gaming revenues coming to a complete halt there. The partnership that you've had with them, congratulations on working with them on a safe way to slowly reopen some portions of that casino. And making sure some of that operation is able to reopen. Let's go to Jack Marin, if you can, just to give us a few observations. Jack Marin, the NYSAC president, the chairman of the board in Ontario County. Hotel occupancy tax is down 80%. Sales taxes alone, over $1 billion lost for the New York counties in the city of New York. State revenue cuts, 20 to 30%. The governor going to cut county governments $600 to $1 billion in 2020. Mid-year, during the middle of our budgets, Those cuts could stay with these New York counties next year. On top of that, you've got the city of New York projecting a $9 billion immediate hit because of COVID, and another $3 billion in the out years. So it looks like the county hit, the New York City hit of lost revenues combined with the reimbursement cuts for the state is a real tough, perilous position to be in local government. You've been talking with Tom Reed. Tom Reed, one of the key negotiators in the New York Congressional delegation, working with Elise Stefanik, Lee Zeldin, and John Katko out of Onondaga County. What are you hearing about some of the Republicans in the delegation? How are they carrying the state's message to the leadership in the Senate and to the president?
Well, I'd like to thank you, Steve, very much, and to the county executives that have spoken prior. Thank you all. All four of you have been rock stars throughout this pandemic, certainly making yourself available to the citizens within our state, and certainly NYSAC as well here locally, and then certainly involvement with NACO as well. So the four of you, thank you. Can't thank you enough. And certainly I want to also compliment County Executive Ryan for bringing up the CARES Act regarding the 9 counties that benefited. Those 9 counties have done an outstanding job with the utilization of that money. Certainly I'm involved with a county that borders a county that received that. And certainly I've heard the why can't you do what this, Monroe County's done? Certainly I applaud Adam Bello. I think he's done an outstanding job with that money. To answer Steve's question, I actually, texting Congressman Reed, almost daily. And certainly I was just actually a good fortune of being on a Zoom meeting, just ended at noon with him as well. His final comment was, we are going to land this plane. And he still believes he's going to be able to deliver with his colleagues and working with the colleagues in the Senate to land this plane and provide local government. And Tom is a big advocate to provide that money to us. Certainly the state will get their share, but to us being local government. Tom, and we have to take advantage of this as a former city mayor in Corning, that he understands the need to have it in his possession and, and go from there. County government, and all of you have talked about it as well, is certainly I'd like to allude to it as we touch the lives of individuals from the cradle to the grave. And as a town supervisor, certainly Town of Victor would love some funding, but I can tell you we will survive. But certainly I think first and foremost, the dollars, the federal dollars, has to go to county government. When this pandemic struck, we had no playbook to deal with the pandemic. We've worked collaboratively together to create playbooks, but we all have a common theme today, and it all has to do with cuts. Our services we're going to cut, layoffs, furloughs, and the reduction in services. No one wants to hear that. And if anything, our residents deserve to not lose that. If anything, they need to be enhanced. And how do we do that? One message I would like to pass along from Congressman Reed is the fact that if any of us have any contacts outside of our state that can help deliver the message as well. Because I spoke to Senator Schumer last week at an event, and certainly I applaud him as well. I have to believe that, and I know this to heart, that the New York State federal delegation is committed to us. All of them are committed to us, regardless of party affiliation. We are now in strong competition with schools for this federal aid dollar, and that's concerning because the residents, we could talk all day and we could say, our shortfalls, but when it comes to schools, that's going to resonate with every single citizen within our community. So those are our challenges. And again, from Congressman Reed, if any of us have any contacts outside of our states, or we can certainly lean on our congressmen and senators to certainly ask them to tap the shoulders of individuals outside of our state, this would go a long ways. And again, to all of you gentlemen, thank you very much for what you're doing for your communities as well as the state of New York.
Thank you, Jack Marin, NYSAC president, and thank you for what you're doing in Western New York and Ontario County and on behalf of all counties. Mark Levine, let's go back to you to sort of moderate some questions. The first question that we saw that came in here, I'll put it right out there. Any of the county executives wish to respond? What if we don't get this money? what is the likely outcome for the counties of next steps? What's going to happen? Are voluntary furloughs going to become layoffs? Are we going to see closing parks? Are we going to see assets be sold by counties? What's the consequences of federal inaction? That's one of the questions that we received. Pat Ryan.
I'll take a first stab. I mean, I hope it came across loud and clear from all of us that we are at that critical make or break moment where we've, at least in Ulster County, we've months ago already instituted a financial stabilization plan. We've made some of the easier reductions in operational spending, and been able to continue to deliver both critical services for COVID and other important services. But if we don't receive direct federal aid, we are going to have to wrestle with excruciating decisions about not just building bridges and roads, but just maintaining bridges and roads. Not just meeting the existing need for mental health and opioid recovery, but not being able to potentially handle a growing need and demand for those kinds of critical services. And so I think it really is, existential is not too strong a word. It's that double whammy of service need is up, but the revenues are down, and they will be just absolutely brutal decisions.
County Executive Daniel McCoy, did you want to respond to the consequences of a lack of federal aid? We know that those state budget cuts are staring at us right in the face, $670 million for the counties outside of New York. What's your response to that?
You know, Steve, it's making them difficult decisions, and I want to say to my colleagues, we talk on the phone a lot, and we go back and forth how we can come up with initiatives to continue to do the great services we do, right? Because we have to deliver these services. We have to improve on these services, but now we have to deal with less money. And for most of my colleagues that were here in 08, 09, when we had the recession then, that's just like a little pebble in the pond right now, so to speak, to what we're going through now going forward. And we made a lot of cuts back then. In Albany County, we were borrowing $15 million a year in TAN money to make payroll. We owed the state controller $38 million because we amortized money because we couldn't afford it. Our reserves dropped below $20 million. We're losing $20 million a year at a nursing home. And it took us a long time to dig out of that hole to where we're at today, where we owe the state controller $14 million, but we're not borrowing $15 million anymore, and our reserves are well over $60 million. But it's not this year that scares me so much either, because I know what we got to be braced for. It's next year that we're going to get hit harder, in the year after that. And to Pat Ryan's, he perfectly said, having a contingency plan, this is going to be a 5-year buyout, and not knowing what the state's going to do with their next budget, all the cuts we have to make, and we still have an obligation to the people we represent. And to be short-sighted, if you start selling assets, well, these are assets that you're going to, 10 years from now, you're going to regret selling. Maintenance of buildings. I can tell you, when I took over as county executive in 2012, my predecessor stopped investing in the building because we didn't have money. I paid more fixing it now than if we fixed the problem then. And these are tough decisions, and we don't want to furlough. We don't want to lay off. We don't want to stop programs that have a great foundation for our future youth in this county and for our citizens going forward. And the only way we're going to do this is by being creative, but being in this as a partner, and needing a partner in state government as well as the Fed government, and as well as what my county executives across the state and county managers and chairs of boards is working together to come up with solutions that we can all embrace. And you can't tax your way out of this. That's the other issue, because more and more people are going to need jobs. Companies are going to get started. And the last thing you want to do in the middle of a health epidemic and in an economy epidemic is say, hey, by the way, we're going to raise your taxes up, so much to pay our bills. And the thing that worries me is not just as president of NYSAC, but County Executives of America, the governor's last budget tied a lot of these monies that we get for DSS and other programs, raise the age, on property tax cap. So if we blow these caps, it's going to have a bigger ripple effect on our county budgets going forward. So if you get Broome County, and I'll just say any county in New York State, that has to go over the property tax cap. Now they have to anticipate losing a lot more money on top of that because the state's not going to give them their money. So as we're looking at early incentives for employees to leave and not fill their jobs, give them a little bit of a bonus to go out. There's going to be a variety of things we're going to have to put up there in working. Obviously, we have 19 unions in Albany County, and sitting down with all the presidents and members and saying, hey, we need to roll up our sleeves together. I did this in 2012, and they were great. I can't complain about any of the unions here in Albany County. They rolled up their sleeves. But this is going to be tough. Everyone's going to have to roll up their sleeves and make some tough decisions going forward.
Some in the State House have advocated for additional taxation, to reprioritize taxation, to tax the wealthy. They've called it a millionaire's tax, desperate for revenue, desperate to try to stave off some of these massive budget cuts that are staring at the state of New York. The counties, of course, that is not their position to take a position on that millionaire's tax. That is a position for the state legislature and the governor. However, we are being asked on a fairly regular basis how we feel about that taxing the wealthy. I have responded to that type of a question to say that, look, we need all the people we can to stay in the state of New York with the census count right now underway. We don't need policies to drive people out of New York State. Individuals of high wealth provide an overwhelming amount of revenue to the state's treasury. Any comments from the executives on our position with respect to the millionaire's tax? That is the question that has been presented to us.
You want me to take it, Steve? I'll kick it off. I agree with you. I think the point that we're doing is has been driving people out of the state, due to the level of income taxes and other things. And the other problem with that, well, first of all, as that goes, I think our president himself has became a resident of Florida because of the income tax consequences. So what does that tell you when the president from the state of New York has chosen to go to another state where there's that kind of relief? So you do have those consequences there. But more importantly, when things like that happen, the local governments see very little, if anything, of that. And I think the point here is about how we work together and not just cherry picking certain things. It really needs to be a conscious the decision of what the state needs are our needs, and that's one message to the governor. As the governor steps forward and talks to Congress as well to say that we need assistance in that, his needs are our needs, because without us the work doesn't get done. And that's not threatening or partisan or in any way, shape, or form. We provide those state services that we have. And in a pandemic, it becomes, amplified to epic proportions, in what we have to provide. But I'll go back to what Executive McCoy said, and he's so right. I mean, if it doesn't happen, we are working this year, and we have to keep doing this. So a couple things. I think he's spot on when he says, I'm worried about next year. I am too. I think we all are, because we know that this pandemic's going to continue. We know that the numbers are still there, and the costs are, and in the preparation that we've done in advance of this, because all of us have run, have really stepped up. And he mentioned, we have lean governments as it is. We provide services that are essential. I don't want to put people out of work, because I need everybody on the front lines right now, because that's where we are. And so I am worried about next year, as he said, going forward, because where does that revenue come from? A millionaire's tax doesn't help us on the local level, and doesn't serve the purpose of keeping, of providing those services and keeping local governments functioning. And the other side to that is, in addition, is what we need is the acknowledgement of what we're doing, and the danger in that is, if we can't continue what we're doing at the levels where we're doing, that we're doing it, are we going to see cases go up? Are we going to not be able to reach into those neighborhoods and do the testing and do the things that need to get done? So is the pandemic going to grow in that? We've seen it come back around in states and other areas. We don't want that here. And that's why, we have to be as diligent as we can and keep that pressure on the front lines of what we're doing. And that's why it's really important that aid come sooner than later.
Thank you, County Executive Picente. Let's take 30 seconds and take some closing remarks from the county executives that are here with us today. The goal here, we'll start with County Executive McCoy. The goal here is the United States Senate scheduled to take its recess August 7th. That appears to be the time in which we need to get a deal with the House. Fortunately, it takes three sides: the House, the Senate, and the President. The unemployment insurance program expires at the end of July. Dan, that's right around the corner. Let's take a 30-second a closing comment from the county executives, and then we'll wrap up today's event. County Executive McCoy.
Steve, first and foremost, I want to say to you and to your organization, thank you. You've been there through this whole epidemic that we've been dealing with. Steve, again, it's been great to see you on a different level of helping us coordinate everything throughout the counties. And if I take anything away from that, what we did going through this with these 19 weeks, it's with Tony and Ryan and Pat and everyone has said, and Marcus, that, Senator McConnell has to put bipartisan away. You might not like New York State. We like you. Please do the right thing. Do the package that gives county and locals the money that we need to continue going forward. Because, here's the reality. It's only going to get worse if we don't get the federal bailout that we need. And the governor's done a good job advocating for what the state of New York needs. And if we don't get the money going forward, next year, the year after that, it's going to be tough times. And we're going to see things we haven't seen in this country in our lifetimes, things we read about in our history books, or you might have watched a documentary, or you might have read about it online. It's here, people, and it's going to be like the plague of 1918 or the Great Recession in the 1920s. And it's going to affect people. And you're going to see more people start losing their homes in the next couple of months, being evicted out of their apartments, not being able to put food on the table. So please, let's work together for the people.
Thank you, County Executive Molinaro. Closing comments. We got to unmute you here. Hold on, County Executive. Thank you. Go ahead, Mark.
I know that was intentional. Tony Picente did that to me.
I did.
Listen, I'll just reinforce, a month ago when we all were lobbying for local aid, county and state and local government aid, there were fewer counties who were on the front lines, fewer counties across America who were being stretched too thin, fewer counties who were seeing loss of revenue. And it was almost easy for some of our friends in the United States Senate to suggest that this was New York's problem, New Jersey's problem, Connecticut's problem, but not their problem. Today, there are thousands of counties across America, many of them very rural, many of them very small, in places in states that, today we wouldn't be able to travel to, but have not yet had to experience the response, the need for propping up testing sites, responding with alternate care facilities, stretching their county-based hospitals too thin. Many of those rural communities, those rural counties, they run school districts, and they didn't see the impact of this, but now are. I cannot imagine that a Senator McConnell or the Republican majority that represents states that perhaps are not as populated in many cases as New York, or as or were as hard hit early on as New York. I can't imagine that they would leave those counties to fend for themselves. And at this moment in time, having lived through what we've lived through, no county, again, we are the tip of the spear. We are the front lines of this response. It is the way in which we respond to public health crisis here in America. We still have a lot of work to do. I cannot imagine that they would leave us all alone to fend for ourselves. To the point and the question of what's next, significant cuts in real services. And might I remind my friends, and every county on this call today can assert this, we are leaner governments. We are efficient governments. My county has the smallest workforce it's seen in 35 years. We went into this crisis with the strongest economic and fiscal condition we've ever had, highest bond rating in the state of New York. We didn't make bad choices. We were making smart choices to be responsible to taxpayers. If they want us to continue to provide services, they want us to continue to help small businesses, pave highways, and maintain streets. If they want us to respond to public safety and the concerns that some of my colleagues have for that, we need the revenue and the resources to do it. Otherwise, we're going to hollow out and gut those very critical responsibilities that Americans rely on every day, that cities and communities are being stressed and stretched to provide today. So again, a lot of people have lost a lot. Don't let this moment go by and we've lost yet one more opportunity to do the right thing. We've been doing our jobs. We expect the Senate majority to do its job. We're grateful to our partners in the House who presented at least their starting offer, if you will. Negotiate and get the job done.
Thank you. County Executive Patrick Ryan, Ulster County Executive Patrick Ryan, closing remarks.
I just want to 2 points, echo what County Executive Molinaro said. We, from the beginning, local governments have stepped up, often with no support and guidance, and got done what needed to be done to protect our residents, to save lives, and to meet all these other critical needs. And now it's time for our colleagues in the Senate to do their part and to do it quickly because it's urgent. The last thing I do want to say, second point, is that I really want to thank and recognize specifically Senator Schumer, who has been an incredible ally and advocate to not just New York local governments and counties, but all local governments and counties across the country. He has made clear that this support for local and state governments is necessary, is critical. He supported it in the House version of the HEROES Act, and I believe that he and other colleagues will ultimately prevail and negotiate and make sure that we get this critical support. So I want to thank him. And I also want to thank NYSAC and all of my colleagues here. It's good to see everybody actually, at least on the screen. And thanks to everyone who joined us.
Thank you, County Executive. Opening day here, Major League Baseball starts today. You want to have the Toronto Blue Jays play in the city of Utica, County Executive Picente? Hopefully we can get them to play in the state of New York. Anthony Picente, Oneida County Executive, closing remarks.
Actually, the Blue Jays farm team started in Utica, New York, some 40 years ago, so they can come back anytime they'd like. I mean, we'll welcome them with open arms. As my colleagues have said, we reiterated, and I think it's important. And I like and Jack Marin used a line that I used early on too, and that we have used. There's been no playbook for this, and I think when you look at if I was talking right now to Senator McConnell across the screen, I would say, let me ask you something. When this started, do you know what took place? Because county governments just got to work. We didn't wait for anything. We didn't ask anybody, what do we do next? We just did it. And all my colleagues have said that, and all of them have done the same thing. And we shared ideas. We discussed things and stole ideas and talked about coordinating things between each other. But we didn't, that playbook didn't exist. And the fact that the Senate is looking at this through, I don't know what kind of lenses they're looking at it from. And the other fact that they're recessing, I can't understand anybody recessing. We've never, that's something that those of us in county government don't exist on, those recesses that take place. And I have to have a shout out to ask our state legislature too. And the governor's been visible to this, in the forefront from day one. Where's our state legislature in crying for this? I mean, they've been almost non-existent, with few exceptions. But what we really need is, we've been doing this stuff. If I had Senator McConnell again across from me, I'd say, let me show you all the things that we've done, and not just Oneida County, but Dutchess County and Ulster County and Albany County, and the unique things that we've come up with and we've done from the very beginning. And that's all you need to do is help us. Help us help the people. They're your constituents. I say this all the time. Your constituents are mine. They're the governors. They're the senators. they're the congressmen, they're all of ours. We all serve the same people. We've been doing it. We need you now to serve the people in the way only the Senate and the President and Congress can. So again, Steve, thanks for your leadership and work with this. To my great friends, the other executives, and Jack Marin, thank you for your leadership. We'll keep fighting and we'll keep working together to make this a better place and to come out of this even stronger than when we started. So thank you all.
Thank you, County Executive Picente. Again, this press conference was called yesterday because of the reconvening of the House and the Senate, and the United States Senate introducing legislation today. The state of New York taught the nation quite a bit. The counties of the state of New York taught the counties of the nation quite a bit as we entered into this pandemic early on. New York City facing a potential of 22,000 layoffs if the federal government does not provide relief. New York City facing $9 billion in economic injury. The state of New York facing a $13 billion budget deficit, 60 billion over 4 years and growing. A lot of that pain going to be shifted to the counties by the state over the 4-year period if we don't get relief. I do want to thank our media partners that were with us here today. Without you, we cannot get this message out. We're very grateful for your attention and support. So thank you, everyone. That'll conclude today's media call. Thank you to the county executives.